Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talk Me Healthy podcast with Sherry Keating. I hope everyone's doing well and staying safe and healthy. So today we are going to be talking about freedom from captivity. And I've invited my special guest, Emily Vazquez from Excel Church, as someone who can help us really dig in and talk about captivity and how to free ourselves. And so I've invited Emily. So Emily, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And
thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. I really am.
I'm so honored to have you. So the reason that I really wanted to do this podcast, as you know, Emily, is that we just finished a 4-week book club from Excel Church, and it was a group of amazing women. And I can tell you, just by listening every week, that the book that we did, it's called She is Free by Andy Andrew, and it was life-changing for so many women. And so I just really felt like we needed to share this with all the viewers. And so that's why I wanted to do this podcast with you today. So how did you feel about the book club?
I thought it went great. I have been praying about doing some type of book club with the women of the church. And I read this book about 5 years ago when I was going through a really dark time. So it just kind of popped back up in my heart again. And it exceeded my expectations, especially because it was virtual. Like I wasn't sure how people were going to be able to connect and things like that, but I thought it went amazing.
It totally did. It was unbelievable. And listening to the transformations and the testimonies that came out of those 4 weeks was unbelievable. I know myself, I had so many aha moments in this book, and I really didn't realize some of the things that were keeping me captive until I became aware, and then now I'm starting to dig down deeper to figure out what all of that means. So I wanted to really dig into that. But first I wanted to find out, how did you meet Andy? Because I know that you know her personally. We had the honor of speaking with her on our last day of the book club, and that was amazing. How did you meet her, and why, this book? Why did you, I know that you used this book in the past, but why did you think it would resonate with other people as well?
Well, so I've always I've been very open with like struggling with figuring out my own mental health. Like from a very young age, now that I look back, I was struggling with depression, struggling with anxiety, and I wasn't really around a lot of people that I felt could relate. So it was a way that I developed, kind of just coping for me, was just shoving everything down, acting like nothing was there, denying my emotions, constantly telling myself like what's wrong with you, like shaming myself all the time. And I ended up reading the book through an inexperience. My husband and I launched Excel Church about 6 years ago. And about halfway through, he had a physical and emotional breakdown. And in that time, he went out on sabbatical. We addressed the physical portion. And then it was clear that he had some mental health things that he needed to process as well. So we got treatment for undiagnosed PTSD. And during that time, I think I probably went into the worst bout of depression. And I hadn't really felt it like that since I was younger, a teenager. And it's funny because I've never really been a big reader, but somehow I clicked on this book in Amazon and I ended up reading it, and I resonated so much with the book. So that's the connection that I had with the book. It really restored my faith. It restored the fact that I'm normal, that I feel emotions. And I was so touched by her vulnerability and her realness. Like, she was saying things I felt like nobody would say. And then by a chance meeting, one of my best friends was having a women's conference in Baltimore this past fall, and I went out there to just see if I could be supportive and stuff like that. And one of her special guests was Andy Andrew. So it was like, oh my goodness. And when I met her, she was just as I pictured her, like just very real, very humble, very, like, the way she writes is the way her personality is personally. So we connected there, and we've kind of stayed in like contact through social media and stuff like that. So that's when the book kind of popped up again for me. And then when I was praying through it, I was like, you know what, I think I need to do this book again and put out the the whole format. Like I wasn't sure who was going to join, but we ended up, I had to close the group because we had so much response. We had about 90 women that registered, probably about 75 to 80 that showed up weekly over the 4 weeks. But that's how, sorry if I got off on a tangent
Oh
there.
no, I love it.
Yeah, that's how we connected with Andy. And again, I mean, I reached out to her just thinking, she's probably going to say no, but I sent her an email like, hey, would you want to hop on for our last book club? And she accepted right away.
And she was so amazing. And you're so right. I want to be her best friend because she's just so real, and she's living the life that we are. And she's just so real. And she actually speaks what we want to say sometimes that we don't. Yeah. And I love the rawness and the realness. And that really drew me because I'm not a big reader either. And I never finish books. I have probably 20 books started and not finished, but this book I could not put down. I've already sent it to my best friend in Texas. I've already given it to other people. I just feel like everybody, even though it's called She Is Free, I feel like everybody really needs to read this book. And I loved her. I loved her, and I can so see how you two connected. And, God's plan is perfect, right? This book kept popping up throughout your life, and now it's changing lives. And so it didn't happen just because it happened for a specific reason.
Yeah. And the funny thing is when I did the book club, I thought to myself, this is going to be great because I've already read it. I can, I know what I got, what I need out of it. And reading it again was just like a whole different set of lessons that I learned because I'm in a different place now. It's 5 years later, but I got just as much like new revelation and new self-awareness that I didn't see the first time around. And I 100% agree with you too. I know it's called She Is Free, but it really is for men and women.
Absolutely. I'm actually starting to read it again too. There's so many nuggets in there. You just can't absorb it in one read through. Like you have to just keep going back and just really digging in and really digesting and working through each chapter. So let's talk about what's in this book that's so amazing. So what holds us captive? So tell us a little bit about that part.
So she talks about basically to me, it's a book about really just walking through the emotions. And what I really appreciated about it is that I think like in general, I know it's true in the church world, from my experience anyway, is we categorize emotions as good and bad. The good emotions are, I feel happy, I feel joy, peace. And then there's bad emotions that's fear and unforgiveness and shame and things like that. And what I appreciated about the stance was she invites us in the book to really look at all emotions as a gift. So instead of saying, why am I afraid? What's wrong with me? I shouldn't be afraid. Or if I'm sad or depressed, I shouldn't be that this way. Like, what's wrong with me is a question that I hear all the time. And she really asks us to pause for a minute and that we can look at those emotions, even the ones that we categorize as bad. They're trying to tell us something. And how much more can we be free from not being afraid to say, why am I afraid? Why am I feeling sad right now? Why am I trying to control? So it's more looking at the lens of self-awareness in the terms of really looking at yourself, not outward of what is contributing to this around me. It's like what really is going on inside of me. And the gift that's in really being able to look at our emotions as symptoms and then deal with those symptoms. And then that's where the freedom comes. If we continue to just deny, like if, there's so many things out even right now, like I feel like there's this toxic positivity culture where it's like, good vibes only. And I get the premise of that. I get the, I'm no drama in 2020, which, I think that's been a mess for all of us for 2020, but
throw that New Year's resolution out the window.
I know. I was like, all the memes that were on social media were like, 2020 is going to be our best year ever. I'm like, how do we feel about those now? But I think that there's a healthy way to deal with emotions. It's not to let them rule us. You know, we should not be living in fear every single day, but really having a stop and investigating them, going inside. Why do I feel this way? You know, we hear a lot about mindfulness and self-awareness, and those I really do believe are key. And that's what she did in the book. It challenged us instead of blaming and looking outward. And everything will change if people outside of me change, or this didn't happen to me. But the stance of really looking, why am I feeling this way? Not being afraid to be uncomfortable, not being afraid to really like contemplate and revisit some painful parts, where most of us, we want to medicate those parts, we want to deny and numb. That only lasts, you can do that for a little while, but eventually it'll begin to spill out, and we all have numbing mechanisms. So
that's like putting a Band-Aid on it for a temporary period of time, but eventually it's still festering and it's still affecting you physically, emotionally, spiritually. So we have to dig deep, and it's painful to do that, but the freeing that comes from doing that is unbelievable and transformational, and it changes your life.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. And that's why I think we're trained. If it doesn't feel comfortable, I need to run away from it. You know, like if all of a sudden I'm feeling like sad because I'm revisiting a past hurt or something like that, there's a tendency in our culture of, the minute we feel uncomfortable, this is not right. And it really, we shouldn't live like that, but it is an indication that our emotions are telling us something that we need to revisit. We need to, you know, be patient with ourselves, and we need to be more introspective. So.
I love that analogy. I mean, that's so good. It really sums it up. And, you know, for me, I think that was my biggest takeaway is I used to blame everything on everyone around me, you know, well, if this didn't happen, I wouldn't be this way or whatever. And I'm sure a lot of people go into that because they're afraid to look inside and, well, maybe it could be me, you know? And so I think for me, the biggest takeaway was the self-awareness piece. And then I actually started, like, when I would feel angry, I'd be like, okay, stop. Why am I angry? I think that was the biggest help for me, is saying, okay, why am I this way? And if I get into a conversation with someone and I'm really upset about what's going on, I'm like, you know what? I need to have this conversation. We'll continue it later, because I need to figure out why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling. And that's been so powerful. Like, I feel like I have control.
Yeah. And you know what? It sound so simple.
It sounds so simple, like, but it's not.
No, we're not. So most of us are not doing that. We think we are, but we're not doing that. But just that step of, why am I feeling angry? It really can, it helps so much in just acknowledging that it's there. And then, you know, and just thinking, I mean, even just taking a minute sometimes of like, why am I feeling this way? I'm going to acknowledge I feel this way. And it can reveal so much.
It has been, I think that was the biggest definite benefit for me of reading the book, because I'm really, I mean, it's a work in progress, of course, and it's not like I do this all the time, but now I'm really starting to work on that self-awareness piece. And to change a habit, 21 days. So it's not something that's just going to come overnight. You're going to wake up and say, okay, I read the book, I'm all fixed. Good. I know what to do now, because this is like, I'm going to read this book multiple times, because like you said, you can get something out of every time. And as I'm working through this process, that book is going to become very handy. So how do we begin this process? So we become self-aware, we feel angry, we're having a conversation, we get upset with whatever the topic is or the person and or what they've said. So we self-aware, then what do we do next? Like, how do we dig into the root of the problem?
So I think the first thing is just acknowledging that there has to be an acknowledgement of, I need to dig deeper, you know, and then really ask yourself, do I really want to be free? Like, do I just like she actually referenced that in the book. Do I like the idea of feeling free? Am I committed to like really having some hard, you know, processing? You know, the thing too that I wanted to bring up while you were talking is, I had mentioned, you know, everything is outside of us. Like, where the culture is like, look outside. If you can change your environment, then everything inside will be right. And one thing I wanted to make sure that I pointed out was, it's really about, it's not about denying that the outside things happen. It's not about denying that people have hurt us or that the environment plays a role. It's about acknowledging that and then also realizing like, okay, this is how it affected me. Even if I was wounded by someone, it's not about saying that, oh, that doesn't cause me to be this way. No, it's a real wound in a lot of ways. But even though we haven't asked for it or it wasn't our fault in what happened, we still have a responsibility to ourselves to go there. So I just want to make sure I just felt led to just say I'm not in any way saying deny the fact that circumstances hurt. It's about, acknowledging that those things hurt, but also ultimately in life, most of us aren't going to get all the apologies that we think we deserve. And most of us are not going to be living in environments where, people are constantly going to be making sure we're comfortable. So it's acknowledging that portion, but then owning the part of what's happening internally it's my job, even though it may not have been right what happened or it shouldn't have happened in so many different areas, but it's about acknowledging internally, this has happened, this is what's marked me, and now, even though that may be unfair, it's my job to do the internal work.
Yeah.
So I think, go ahead.
I was thinking as you were saying that, a couple of things came to my mind, like the forgiveness piece and how, somebody does something to us. I always struggled with forgiveness, and I'm sure a lot of other people do, because I was hurt very badly when I went through a very dark period of time when I had cancer and my husband left, and I struggled with forgiving him. But what I've learned, and this book, really acknowledged that, is that when you forgive somebody, you're not forgiving their action. You're forgiving them so you can be free, because they're holding you captive until that time.
Yes.
So I forgave that person that hurt me so deeply for me, because I couldn't move forward and I was stuck and they still had control over me. And so forgiving them didn't say what you did was okay.
Yes.
But it allowed me to be free to move forward and to continue my walk with God and to be the person I wanted to be without having this other person control me. Does that make sense?
Oh my goodness, I perfectly said. Like, I was going to mention that too, that I think a lot of us think that forgiveness, exactly what you said, if I forgive someone, then what I'm saying is what you did to me is okay.
Right.
And I also think too that a lot of us get stuck in the forgiveness portion because, if I truly forgave, then why do I still have feelings of pain? Why do I still have, still have moments where I feel hurt? No, the forgiveness is an act of like your will, but there still has to be processing and patience and acknowledgement that it hurts at times. But in no way does it mean that I'm, gonna now run back to an unhealthy relationship or let people trample all over me. But it's saying, I'm not gonna let you control how I feel or how I move forward in the rest of my life. And a lot of times we do that unknowingly. When we're holding grudges, it's making us sick.
Right.
Physically sick, not just emotionally and mentally, but it really does, like, your freedom unknowingly when you're in unforgiveness becomes attached to that other person's actions, and
absolutely,
it holds us back. So forgiveness is a process. I think that we had defined it differently. And, it's like that there should be no more feelings of pain, no more feelings of hurt. And that's not true. You can still have to process it. But an act of our will is like, I forgive this person, but I'm still going to put up healthy boundaries. And I'm still going to acknowledge at times that the pain is there. I love in the forgiveness chapter 2 in the book, she has that prayer.
Yes.
And, saying something out loud and going back, the fact that she mentioned too on our call, I think, like, I read that prayer all the time. I'm like,
I do.
Thank you.
Definitely do.
But I think it's a way to kind of center ourselves. It allows us to still feel at times the emotion of it, not beat ourselves up and say, oh, I haven't forgiven this person, if I still feel pain associated to it. But that was one of the most powerful chapters. And that was, I think, the chapter that probably got the most feedback. Everything was very, very close, but people were really, really challenged in a healthy way to look at, am I holding something inside of me that's keeping me from being free,
I also think too, in the forgiveness prayer, I wish I had pulled it up, but it talks about how you can't control others. You can only control you and your emotions. So I think that was very powerful too, because it gives you back some control.
Yeah.
And forgiveness, really, a lot of those other prisons that we're, in stem from unforgiveness. The anger, the shame, the guilt, the fear, the control, the isolation. I feel like they emanate from unforgiveness. Do
Yeah.
you agree?
I can totally see that, because I think that the main all these emotions like anger and fear and anxiety and stem usually from a wound that's
Yeah.
been done. There's something that's been done to us that we hold, and or that we haven't acknowledged, or we've said, oh, we forgive, but we really haven't like understood what we just talked about, breaking down what forgiveness looks like. So I can completely see how that is closely related, because if you're holding on to that initial wound, all these symptoms manifest out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So there could be from one emotion, a lot of prisons that you become part of with
Yeah.
that one emotion. So if you can work on that emotion, you can free yourself from other prisons that you may be in, not knowing that it's all related to this one prison.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what the self-awareness that's so huge in this is, that she's asking you to revisit what is it? What is it? So the other thing too that I was really encouraged, because I didn't see it when I went through the book on my own, was how many women were saying, oh, I never, like when we got to the control chapter, I had so many emails and texts going, I never knew I was a control freak. Like I always thought that I'm just like organized or, and that is the truth. But a lot of times, like it's so a part of who we are.
Yeah.
That unless someone calls something out, you don't realize that it's actually the way that I'm managing my anxiety. If I can have my hand on everything and I can make sure that I feel like I know how this is going to go. So a lot of times too, like unhealthy areas that can also simultaneously be a strength for us. So it can be an area that we're celebrated in. So if we're really great at, type A, like everything's organized, but that unchecked can
control.
can turn into control, and you don't even something that is really being celebrated from somebody else, like, oh, you're a great multitasker, and she gets everything done and whatever, can also, unless you have a moment to say, wait a second, is this out of control? And only you can do that. Only you know what's behind those things. So there was definitely awareness of I like almost labeling an area, another area. And then once it was called out, like, oh my goodness, I have an issue with control, or I have an issue with anger, but they were calling it something else.
Yeah, you're talking about me. I know you are. You don't even know
Sorry.
it. I am such
talking about myself too.
It was so funny because I'm such a control freak. And when I read that chapter, I'm like, wow. So I was really digging deep to figure out, well, why did I become the way I became? And I realized that when I grew up in a very military background, my dad was an Army sergeant, and he raised us like his little military troop, and we did not have control. He was definitely in control. And so I realized from when I going through this chapter, from a very young age, I didn't have that control in my life. And so when I left that environment, I'm like, I am going to be in control. Yes. And I have since controlled everything in my life. And so I had to go down and apologize to my husband. I'm like, I just had like this eye-opening aha moment that I am a control freak. He's like, you think? And I'm like, I am so sorry. And
that I love that. I love that. That's what, like, hearing that is like what the book is all about, because it's like we all have blind spots. We all do. And like, when you're raised in an environment where that's the norm, and you've lived yourself in a way where control for a lot of us and organization brings comfort, It's like, okay, I feel like growing up, I may not have had control. I'm in control now, but that unchecked is not healthy. Anything out of balance isn't healthy, but I love the fact that you had the awareness to stop and then go acknowledge it and own it. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
and now he reminds me every day, oh, you're acting controlling. I'm like, oh, what can of worms did I open? But it's so funny because he's like, you're being controlling. I can do the dishes. I'll just do it when I'm ready. I'm like, you're right. I'm going to walk away. You're right. You can do it just as good as me. I'm going to walk away. So
yeah.
I'm totally working on this, and he's helping me, obviously.
Yeah, and I love the fact that it's not, when you go through this and there's a comfortableness where it doesn't, there's not like people will say something and there's a freedom where somebody that you love and trust can speak into an area of your life where you don't automatically get defensive. No, I'm not, which is what most of us do. But it's like, okay, no, I've called this out and I'm more aware that that is exactly how I'm operating. And you said, I'm talking about you. I'm like, that was a major issue for myself too. I still work through it. Like there's times that I'm like, Emily, walk away. Like, it's okay.
It's
But
hard.
yeah, it just becomes a lifestyle. And until you
Absolutely.
step outside and experience different people and let, other voices, trusted voices in your life, you don't even realize you're operating in a lot of ways, that are
And
unhealthy.
why? I think it's the why too.
Right.
And I'm all about the why. I speak about my why all the time. And I think it's getting to the why.
Yeah.
And once you get into the why, then you see the big picture. And so, I think that's really important to not only, realizing, but the why behind all of that.
Absolutely.
And then really working through that. And like you said, it's not something, it's a process, and it could take years. I mean, it took me years to forgive my ex-husband. So it's a process. So give yourself a break. We're human.
Exactly.
And surrounding ourselves with like-minded, people that we trust and can share that and can help us, like my husband helping me, reminding me, it's really good, because it helps us keep that awareness so that we don't fall back into our old habits, because it's hard to break old habits.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to talk about some resources, because our time is, I could talk to you about this subject forever. It was so life-changing for me. I'm so excited that you're here today. So what can we give people for resources?
Yeah, so the resources, I highly recommend the book, She Is Free by Andy Andrew. It's amazing. It also you can get like a workbook that goes along with it that will help you process it a little bit more. One of the topics that came up a lot was healthy boundaries afterwards, kind of knowing how to put healthy boundaries up. So I feel like a book that I would recommend is Boundaries. It's literally just called Boundaries by Dr. Henry McLeod.
Okay.
And then also my husband and I lead Excel Church. But he a lot of teachings have come out of his time processing mental health. And he did a series, I'll send the link over to you after when we're done, but he did a series called Shame Off You. And it was powerful. And it's just examining your emotions and how just some powerful revelation in there. So I think there's about 6 or 7 teachings in there. You don't have to listen to the whole thing, but it breaks down topic per teaching. And I think that would be a great place to start.
That's awesome. I love that. So tell me a little bit about Excel Church. It's my home church, and it's been life-changing for me. And the people, I have never felt so warm.
Oh.
The day I went to Excel Church, I had been in a church for 5 years, and I loved that church, but God was calling me to move on. And so someone told me about Excel, and I went, and from the minute I drove in the parking lot, there were people bringing me and waving to me and saying good morning, and then to the front door. And then the whole experience was the most incredible, loving, warm experience. I'm part of the dream team. I have never, the teachings are phenomenal. You and Pastor Emmy are unbelievable. And it's the best move I ever made, and my walk with God has just grown so much. So thank you.
You're gonna make me tear up on this podcast, but honestly, that's the greatest compliment that we could get. We wanted to create a safe space for people that you don't have to walk in and pretend like you have it all together. That we really believe that our faith, God he wants to be relational. He wants, he came because he can relate to us in every area. And so when you say that, that's the greatest compliment. We wanted to create a safe space that you can walk in and grow, but also walk in and not feel like you have to qualify yourself before coming through the door. So I just so appreciate it. And we love having you on the team. We miss meeting with everybody face to face. So,
And I
But
love our logo, that your slogan is no perfect person allowed. I love
yes,
that because what blew me away too the first day was all the different backgrounds represented at that church.
love
It
it.
is so multicultural, and it is, young, old, middle-aged. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And like, almost 1,000 people. Like, it is
Yeah.
just so, in the small groups, and just everything about it is, you guys have really, really created such an incredible place for Christians to come. It's
Thank you
amazing.
so much. It means so much. Honestly, if it wasn't, it is a God thing, but also like we're so honored. Thank you for mentioning the Dream Team. You are a member of the Dream Team, but we just have a great group of people that I think when you see people and you don't put an expectation of you have to be perfect, but we're going to grow in this thing together. And, we couldn't do it. I always say we can't do it without God and without our Dream Team. So it's an honor to do it. So Excel Church, we started in 2014. We began meeting for the first 2.5 years at elementary school in Lancaster. And then since 2016 to now, until before our coronavirus sent us all home, we were meeting in Leominster High School. So we're looking to get back in there, but that's our current place right now is pretty much online.
Yes.
But yeah, we rent the auditorium and some space in Leominster High School, and that's where we usually meet every Sunday. So we're hoping to get back to that soon.
And the service is at 10:15 on Sundays.
Yep, our website is excelchurchma.com. You can see all the prior teachings or classes that we offer, and yeah.
I highly recommend checking it out, you guys. You will never not go there once you go there once. I'm telling you, it's amazing. You're very welcome. So the last thing I want to do is just sum it all up in 3 takeaways. There's so much, but if you could kind of come down to 3 takeaways that we can, have the viewers leave with.
Yeah, I would say the first is to investigate your emotions. Really, like when your emotions come up, instead of shaming or denying, or even just getting into a place where some people will get so depressed and just shut down, is really investigating why am I feeling like this, like poking at it and like, what are you here to teach me? Mm-hmm. And I just think that is acknowledging that it's there, and is a powerful way. It sounds so simple. But I would say that acknowledging it, investigating, that's all self-awareness, without shaming. The second thing I would say is to process your emotions with others, and that you have to, not everybody has a voice in your life. So it's going to take out, anybody listening may have your trusted group around you. What I've learned is that most of us aren't sure that we can trust a lot of the people around us. So not everybody deserves to hear every single part of your story, but there has to be people that you can process your emotions with. And if that, for a period of time, that's a counselor, a therapist, you're a pastor, anything like that. It's anytime we take a risk with people, it's a risk. Mm-hmm. But I would just invite people to continue to try. And even if it's I'm a big supporter of therapy. It's something that I've done for years on and off. It's a great check-in for me. But that would be the other one, is to find a group of people that you can process with and discuss, kind of like we did in our book club. And then the third one would be to be patient with yourself. Mm-hmm. A lot of us, like like you had mentioned, how you were raised, we carry that into our adulthood, even unknowingly. So we've learned these things over decades. Yes. And then once it is brought up, there's this tendency of like, we're going to change it in a day. I really believe the process is for the rest of our lives. Like every time we feel like we're going to tackle something, like there has to be patience to say, even if you acknowledge something and then you make the mistake, acknowledging the fact that you made the mistake and resetting the expectation, or I'm going to start over again, that's still like a huge win, because at one point you may not have even acknowledged that was wrong. So just being patient with yourself. It's taken you decades, or it's taken us decades to learn a certain way. We can't expect that we're going to unlearn in a day or a week. Like, it is an ever evolving process. And, you know, we always talk about patience. Usually it's for on the outside. We have to have more patience with people, our children, our coworkers, but really we have to have a really deep level of patience with ourselves too.
And don't put these high expectations on yourself either, you know. I mean, give yourself a break. And I've learned through my spiritual journey and my cancer journey is that, you know, for every trial, I don't look at it as a bad thing now. I've gone through many trials in the last 12 years, and I look at them as an opportunity, and I look at them as, what are they trying to teach me?
Yeah.
And I know something amazing is going to come out of that. So I kind of get excited when things, you know, happen. I know something big, wonderful is going to come out of it. So if people can change their mindset and say, okay, instead of like, oh no, this happened to me again, you know, and all of this, think about it as, oh, something really awesome is going to happen. And it's either going to be transformational for me or my life or my family or something. And it's an opportunity to take a step back. Just like COVID, take a step back and look. And my business went away through COVID, but after I kind of went through the emotional, you know, roller coaster, I sat back and said, okay, so what are you trying to teach me, God? And I've learned so much, and I've changed my whole platform, and it's been awesome.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I love it. I heard a while ago, and I've always kind of stuck with this too when we go through tough times, is don't ask why me, ask what's next.
Love it.
You know, it's just about accepting, okay, I'm in this situation, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to let it rule me, but I'm not going to deny it's here either. I'm not going to have a victim mentality, but if I can say what's next, you're allowing yourself to feel the emotions, but I know that there's going to be a lesson out of this. I love the way that you just put that. And your testimony really inspires me too. Everything that you've been through, to hear your story. I just want to invite your listeners too, if they haven't gone back to listen and investigate, and the things that you've overcome is just so inspirational. So I just wanted to say thank you to you too for bringing me, allowing me to speak to your listeners and having this conversation, joining the book club, but also just being an example of, you know, continuing to move on and learning the lessons and inspiring others. It really is an inspiration. So
well, now, okay, it's my turn to cry. Thank you so much. And, you know, I'm a work in progress, but I'm always trying to grow in all areas of my life. So thank you. I really appreciate that. And one day I'm going to do a podcast on my story, because I feel like that will change people's lives too. So I want to thank you so much. I love having you as my guest. I love what we talked about, and I feel like we're gonna touch people's lives from this, and I am so grateful.
Thank you so much. Thanks for giving a platform to something that I really think is so important. So
you're so welcome. And viewers, thank you for tuning in again to Talk Me Healthy podcast with Sherry Keating. Remember to live your best life every day starting today, and tune back in next time. But until then, stay well, and buy the book, She Is Free, by Andy Andrew. It will change your life. So thank you again. And thank you again, Emily.
Thank you so much.
All right. You're welcome.